All right. So right now, what we're going to do is go over some of the more common interview questions you're going to get as you go out there as an entry level individual. When you're going pretty much fresh out of high school, maybe while you're still in college, these are some of the more common questions you're going to get. More than likely, these questions are going to seem easy, especially for someone who's experienced. But for someone who's new, these questions can be very difficult. You need experience and practice before you actually become comfortable with these questions. And that way, when you get these questions, when you go for an interview, you're going to do a lot better. These questions pretty much tell a manager pretty much everything they need to know. And although they're simple, they're just enough to get what they need out of you. Now, there's more than just these questions I'm going to give you, but these are some of the more common ones. And so that way, what I'm going to go over is how to answer these common questions that you're more than likely going to get at your first job, whether it be in retail, as a fast food person, someone working in the hospitality industry, so hotels and restaurants. Any of those things, you're going to get most likely these questions or a version of these questions. Now, the very first question is tell me about yourself. And it's an easy question to ask, not an easy question to answer. And there's two ways you can answer this question. Some people just freeze up and have no idea what to say. Others actually come up with something to say. However, they go too long. They probably go for 2 to 3 minutes talking about their whole life story. And I've done that before. Now ask yourself, how would you answer that question right now in the moment? If I ask you, tell me about yourself, would you be able to answer it? In this case, if you can't, one thing I recommend is making a list of about 4, 5, or 6 items about yourself. Making that list, and then when you actually get asked that question, you just turn that list into a paragraph phrase, essentially your elevator pitch. You could include your name. However, some places you've already introduced yourself. At that point, because it's pointless to say who you are. You can mention your high school. You can mention if you're in honor roll. You can mention any sports you're involved in, any clubs you're part of. If you're involved in the church, if you're doing something with your family, like a family business, you can mention all that. Now, if you don't have any of that stuff, you can mention personality traits. So you could say you're a great critical thinker, you're a problem solver, you're organized, you're a great communicator. So you make a list of these items, 4, 5, or 6 of these, and then you go ahead and you just pretty much get used to reading them off as if it's a statement. So let's begin with me. Let's pretend I did my introduction. I'm a student at Sunnyvale High School. I am currently taking a business class. I can talk about the fact that I do play sports. I play football. I'm involved in a club called DECA. And then I could also mention that I'm very organized. If I have that listed out, it'd be very easy for me to say. So as you know, my name is Hector. I am a student at Sunnyvale High School. I'm currently taking business classes. I'm involved in the Club DECA. I'm also involved in football, and I'm a very organized individual. As you can see, it's very quick and to the point. And that's why making a bulleted list of about 4, 5, or 6 things about yourself can make it easy for you to answer that question. Therefore, go ahead and think about, what do you bring to the table? Are you an honor student? Once again, are you in any sports? Are you in clubs? Any characteristics about yourself that stand out, such as being a good communicator, being organized, being excellent with time management? All that stuff can be jumbled in. So therefore, you can make a quick little 4, 5, or 6 little bullet list and practice reciting it so that it sounds more fluid. It sounds very comfortable. And that way you can answer that question effectively. The next question you're going to get is pretty straightforward, is what is your biggest strengths? Or what is your biggest strength? So you get to either pick one or pick various different ones. This one, just answer it truthfully. Think about what you bring to the table, and then find a way to say it in a way where you sound strong about that particular characteristic about yourself. So that question, honestly, is not a hard question. It's just make sure you know what your strengths are. What do you bring to the table? The next question is very hard. It is, what is your biggest weakness? And this is a hard one because you don't want to say what you're bad at. You don't want to say, oh, I'm late all the time, or I'm not organized. You know what? I'm very clumsy. However, there's 2 ways to answer this question. One of them is to take something that's a strength and make it sound like a weakness. One example would be, I'm a perfectionist. And what that means is I take more time to complete things. However, I want to make sure it gets done right the first time, so that way I don't have to do it again. I am working on being able to let things go a little bit more. And so that's something I've been actively working on. So essentially, you're telling them that you're slow, but it's because you like to provide high quality work. Some people don't like using that because they don't have anything strong that they could turn into a weakness. So you can actually talk about a legitimate weakness. One of them can be, I am unorganized. I'm unorganized. However, I'm working on it. How am I working on it? Is I'm using an app on my phone that's helping me keep organized all the different things I have to do in a day. The second way I answered it, not only did I give them a weakness, but I made sure to make the person know how I'm improving that weakness. So that's a better way to answer that question is by saying, here's a legitimate weakness. I'm not lying to you, but I am working on it. So it's not like I'm just going to stay that way. I'm always going to make sure to improve myself. And you can even make that part of your answer. Say that, hey, this is what I'm doing to make myself better because I want to make sure I'm always making myself better. And so I'm not always going to be this unorganized person. I'm staying organized by using an app on my phone. I'm staying organized by writing things down. I'm staying organized by keeping track of everything that I'm doing. The next question, which on your assignment, for some of you that are doing the assignment on here, is why do you want to work here? This one is just be truthful. If you honestly do not have a reason why you want to work for that company, why are you even there? Make sure you have an answer for that question. So on your worksheet, right now we're not talking about any specific business in mind when it comes to why do you want to work here. However, you want to make sure that you at least have a passion or at least are interested in the job that you're applying for. Because if you don't want to work there, why are you even there? I've actually had that happen to me where I've applied to a job that I didn't want to work at. And when they asked me that question, I honestly had no answer. And at that point, I realized, why am I here? And finally, the last question is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? This one's straightforward. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? If you don't have a good answer for that, unfortunately, you need to start thinking to yourself, where would you see yourself in the next 5 years? Actually come up with a goal for yourself and see where you want to be in the next 5 years. Because if you don't have an answer for that question, it makes you seem lost. It makes you seem like the person that doesn't have any goals or ambitions. And at that point, the employer might not be interested. Now, it's not always an end all be all, but definitely consider thinking to yourself, what is it that you want to do in the next 5 years? What is something that you really, truly are passionate about? And if you don't have an answer, at least come up with your plan for figuring out your answer. Because if you are lost, there are options. You could talk about, I want to go explore. I want to go actually, in the next 5 years, I want to go actually visit a bunch of different countries because I'm interested in seeing what I truly want to do. And I don't know what I want to do until I actually seen the rest of the world. And then I could actually figure out what's best for me. So those are the top 5 most common questions that you're going to get in an interview. Now, in the future, you're going to get other questions such as what's called a behavioral analysis question. And essentially what you get in those questions is, tell me about a time when, and they expect you to provide a scenario that's actually happened to you. And those questions are a lot more difficult because it causes you to think back to when you had a situation that they're actually going to need for that particular job. So in those type of situations, in those kind of questions, you want to state what the scenario was. What is it that you had to do, which is a task, action, what is it that you did, and then what were the results? How did it turn out? So for instance, if you get a question like, tell me about a time when you had a challenge with another person. Well, I haven't had a job yet, but I'm taking English classes. And so in my English class, I had to work with a group of 4 people that I've never met before. And we had to complete a presentation on Shakespeare. One of the individuals in the group, I already knew from my observations that they were probably not going to do any of the work. And so this is what we did. I made sure to say, you know what, this is what we're going to do to make sure everybody's on the ball and everybody's doing their part. Let's assign tasks. And so what I did was I went through and I said, okay, this is the part you're going to do, this is the part you're going to do. So everybody got an individual task. And that way everybody was forced to do their piece. And this is something I actually presented as a group. So we had it laid out who was doing what. And at that point, it made that last person accountable. So that last person that usually doesn't do any of the work actually had to do their part, because if not, they weren't going to get any points whatsoever, because we were essentially going to say, hey, this person didn't do any of their work. So at this point, we had an excellent presentation because everybody did their part. And so once again, I explained the situation, I explained the tasks that I needed to do. I also went over the action and then the results. And so that's a behavior analysis question. So you're probably going to get those once you get more into your career. But just keep in mind that those questions will come. And then if you're really getting into the business world, eventually you're going to get case study questions. And those are even more advanced. And we'll get to that eventually. But for the most part, these are the more common questions you're going to deal with.